Do you struggle to understand what the 12 palaces in your Zi Wei Dou Shu birth chart represent? What do these palaces highlight? Then you might want to stick around for today's video as I'm sharing the 12 palaces in a Zi Wei Dou Shu chart with some inside secrets. Hi, my name is Gagan Sarkaria and I am a soulful life and high achievement book, branding and business coach. I'm certified and trained in Zi Wei Dou Shu astrology, which is based on Chinese astrology destiny science techniques. And before we get started, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell for notifications. I invite you to be a part of my soulful community and never miss these wisdom videos. And if you like what you see and hear in my videos, please give me a thumbs up and comment below. So let's get started and take a look at the 12 palaces in a Zi Wei Dou Shu chart. All right, let's take a deeper dive into the 12 palaces in a Zi Wei Dou Shu chart. You are looking at my screen and I will be sharing some visuals as I walk you through this video. For those of you who are new to my channel and have never watched other Zi Wei Dou Shu videos, I highly encourage you to go watch those as well. I have done other videos on what is the benefit of doing a life map reading or a Zi Wei Dou Shu birth chart reading with me. How do you actually read a Zi Wei Dou Shu chart? What it looks like? What are the benefits? I've done some other videos, so I highly encourage you to go take a look at those too. But for those who are new and this is their first video, I think it'll be really beneficial for you to look at what an actual Zi Wei Dou Shu chart looks like. So I will be sharing that. And also when people go through coaching service or a life map reading service with me, they get to understand their chart and their blueprint of success like destiny code in a very in-depth manner on a journey that they take with me. So let me start with showing you what a chart actually looks like. So a Zi Wei Dou Shu chart consists of 12 boxes. These boxes are known as a house or a palace or a sector. Now, each palace represents an essential aspect of a person's life. It is literally the 360-degree view, but totally you're looking at a 30-degree portion of your entire life. Now, each palace or each of this box, like right here, it's the wealth palace, the children palace, spouse palace. So when you look at it from that perspective, it is literally a 30-degree portion of the entire universe viewed from where we are at the time of the birth. Now, these palaces represent the people and the things that we really hold dear to our heart, and rotating clockwise with each passing year, the self, the people, and the things around us take the characteristics of the stars that are sprinkled onto our chart at the precise time of our birth. So when we are doing a reading, it is really vital to consider the major stars at the actual palace and the opposing palace as well. And also we need to consider at a lesser degree, what are the palaces at the 120-degree positioning of that particular palace that you're trying to understand. Now, the characteristics described in each palace reflects one's own undertakings and endeavors in life. It is very important to understand not only what the palace means, but what are the stars inside. And of course, one of the next videos I'm going to be making is about the stars that are in the Zi Wei Dou Shu chart. The 12 palaces in the chart comprise of all the aspects of your life. But when interpalatial dynamics are applied, each palace can manifest 12 other qualities on your chart, therefore holding up to 144 aspects altogether. So it's a little complex, but I'm trying to simplify it from a general understanding. So let's take a deeper dive on understanding the general indications of the 12 palaces of a Zi Wei Dou Shu chart. The very first one we're going to talk about is the life palace. Life palace is also known as the self palace or the fate palace, as it identifies your main characteristics. This palace features your overall personality, talent, luck, and destiny. We can also identify business profit or loss from this particular palace. Up next is the second one, called the Siblings Palace. This palace is also known as Kinship Palace. This palace, as the name suggests, is all about your immediate siblings. This palace also shows your siblings' characteristics, well-being, and relationship dynamics with you. This palace also represents your mother. We can also look at property deals and savings accounts and some other financial information from this palace. The next one I want to talk about is the palace called Spouse Palace. And the Spouse Palace, as the name represents, is also known as Relationship Palace. The main focus is on intimate relationships. This palace, as the name suggests, is about your partner in terms of relationships, marriages, affairs, and characteristics. Number 4 is Children's Palace, and Children's Palace is also known as the Peach Blossom Palace, Sex Palace, or Offspring Palace. This palace also determines the number, the characteristics, as well as the luck and conditions of your children. It is also used to observe and study the sexual health of the native, and also if we are talking about the highlights that you want to focus on, joint venture partnerships in business, and also what kind of subordinates or younger audiences or clients you may have in your business or in your career. Up next, we are going to talk about the 5th palace, which is the Wealth Palace. So let's talk about Wealth Palace. The Wealth Palace also is known as the Finance Palace or the Money Palace. This palace, as the name suggests, is indicative of the financial habits of the native, as well as any general cash flow, current accounts and finances, and the attitude towards wealth and money. The Wealth Palace can also shed light on your spouse and marriage relationship. So it's kind of complex from that angle, but if you kind of get to understand the dynamics and how these interpalatial dynamics are working together, you can really piece your entire life and understand your success and blueprint right there from Zi Wei Dou Shu chart. Up next, I'm going to talk about palace number 6, which is an important palace, which is Health Palace. Health Palace is also known as sometimes the Sickness Palace or Illness Palace. This palace where we look at the health condition of the native is very indicative, and you look at what the stars are talking about in this aspect. So we can track the general constitution, sicknesses, or even if somebody is sick, what are the chances of recovery and how can somebody feel better if they're struggling in the health aspect of their life. Up next, I'm going to talk about palace number 7, which is Travel Palace. Let me pull up the slide for that. And the Travel Palace is very interesting because it's one of those palaces that are directly across your Self Palace. Again, an important aspect of understanding your entire blueprint from Life Palace or the Self Palace all the way to your Parents Palace and everything in between. Travel Palace is directly across your Self Palace. And as you look at this palace, it is also the palace that talks about action, or is sometimes also called Movement Palace. And as the name represents, it talks about mobility, travels, and other kind of interactions that you may have during your life. And we can also find out information regarding accidents or mishaps or any falls or some kind of forecasted events that may show up. So from here, an experienced practitioner or a Zi Wei Dou Shu expert can deduce the general status of travels associated with the native. Up next, I'm going to talk about palace number 8, which is the Friends Palace here. And Friends Palace sometimes is also called Peers or Colleagues Palace. This palace definitely concerns the status of your friends. What kind of friends do you have? What kind of friends will you attract? It also talks about your social skills as the native or somebody who is going through the life map reading chart. It also talks about your leadership capacity, overall subordinates, as well as their general characteristics and treatment. And how does that work with you? You know, Friends Palace is an outer palace, not an inner palace, but you can understand the dynamics that you will have with friends. This palace can also give insights regarding the health of your spouse. So again, this is where the interpalatial dynamic comes in and how an expert can really read a Zi Wei Dou Shu chart. Up next is an important palace which everybody wants to talk about and understand. And of course, that is palace number 9, the Career Palace. This palace is also known as Work or Ethics Palace. The career status can be read accordingly to this location. What stars are there? What is the location? It also generally gives the perspective on the conduct and behavior of the native engaging their ambitions. Sometimes you wonder why some people procrastinate more and why are they so slow in taking some action. So all of this dynamic can be viewed from 360-degree perspective. But Career Palace is an important piece that has a deep impact on the self and wealth aspects of a Zi Wei Dou Shu reading. So this palace can also give you insights into the health of your children. So again, this palace not only talks about your career aspirations, but you can also look into the health of your children. Again, this is where the experts come in and how the interpalatial dynamic works. So let's talk about the next palace, which is again palace number 10, right here on a Zi Wei Dou Shu chart. And this palace is called the Property Palace. This palace sometimes is also known as Assets Palace. And the property here, while we are generally talking about the actual property, but you can also look at domestic homes and houses and family situations and dynamics, along with fixed assets. This palace also talks about wealth storage. So yes, it talks about the actual physical aspects of the property, but wealth storage is again an important one. We can also find out information regarding any love triangles or peach blossom affairs from this palace. Or sometimes there is an influence of a third party or adultery issues happening in the life of a native. So this is where we derive that information from. Up next, let's talk about another important palace, which is palace number 11, which is your mental palace, or sometimes it is also known as Karma Palace or Fortune Palace or Destiny Palace. Here we can find the information regarding mental thoughts of the native. Aside from psychological conditions, we can also look into the karmic quality that might affect the luck cycles or the fortune cycles of the native. This palace also showcases indirect wealth or internal health and sickness of the native. One aspect is the physical health, right? The physical conditions, illnesses, sicknesses that we may have. And then there is the internal, the psychological aspect, or some kind of other karmic issues going on your Zi Wei Dou Shu chart that may affect in some worse conditions. And how do you take care of that? That's what we read from Mental Palace. Up next, I want to talk about the last palace, which is the Parents' Palace. Now, Parents' Palace is also known as Elders' Palace, or the Palace of Authority, or sometimes the Father's Palace. This palace is indicative of the parental characteristics that the native has, the authority or the status and the well-being of the parents. The appearance of the native is also sometimes suggestive here, like what they will look like. We can also take a peek into natives' debt collections, that what kind of debt you may have, the monetary aspect of it. And sometimes it also shows us the relationship that you have with your father. So this is, in short, the video and an in-depth view of kind of from a general standpoint. Of course, I can go extremely in-depth with every aspect of the palace because every chart is different. And this, I hope, gives you an insight and a general understanding of what these 12 palaces are in a Zi Wei Dou Shu chart. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Check out my blogs and other links as well. Leave your comments and I will do my best to respond. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you liked this video. Until next time, this is your High Achievement Business Coach, Gagan Sarkaria, signing off.